Hello. Fucking hell. Uh, how are you all? It's pretty hard to do a weekly stream at the moment without having a lot to talk about. But what I thought I'd do, first up, fuck, what's wrong with the angle here? Hang on, give me a sec. I thought I had it right, and then I got up to get water and sat down again. It's all fucked. Oh well, whatever. Tell me if the sound's all right. So, where do we begin? The hardest part of this stream was coming up with a title. I think that a lot of what my frustration is this week is, as somebody who lived through 9/11 and was online at the time and observed all of this discourse at the time, I'm seeing eerie, let's ignore the fucking cult shit, we'll get to that. But I'm seeing this with us or against us bullshit again. And honestly, I thought we were over that. I thought it's been a very weird week for me watching people that I thought were generally intelligent, generally balanced, lose their fucking head. And also it's become abundantly clear that very few people actually understand a lot of the words that are being thrown around lately. Okay. So what I thought I would do, now obviously I never plan these things. We talk about whatever we talk about, but I do have a rough list of things I'd like to talk about. I've blocked out my morning. I blocked out the morning for this one, all right? Because it's a fucking clusterfuck, okay? But do ask questions. Hang on, did this chat thing come up? I'm not sure if it did. Anyway, we'll find out. If it doesn't, let me know. Oh, yeah, there we go, it has. Okay, so, all right, where do I start? I start with not fidgeting my knees under the table because that shakes the camera. Anyway, okay, so, well, there's a bunch of questions that I want to get through, but first up, very quick, for those remaining friends that I have throughout this whole thing, because there's no joy in the middle. There's no joy in being rational. There's no joy in this. I've been this person like before. I'm used to it, right? I'm somebody who was online during 9/11, observed all of this stuff, and I was on Usenet during 9/11. This fucking shit, right? But that was always purely online, okay? This is a whole different game. This is just a full-on cult. Anyway, I'll get to that point. But I've lived through so many things playing out, right? I was involved in the No War movement as part of, in the shadow of 9/11 when we were protesting the war, right? I was involved in the Greens as a result of that. I lifetime on the left, and never have, and this really reeks of, fucking fast forward 5 minutes, because I always waffle for 5 minutes until I get into my groove. But one thing that I don't know, again, there's something to be said about sort of prior trauma coming to the surface when you see the same things happening again. And have I frozen? No? Okay. Seems like I dropped frames there. That's all right. But there's all of this stuff, right? And I'll talk about what's actually happened, because I think a lot of people are also just avoiding news at the moment because they're just so overwhelmed with all of this COVID stuff that they're not really seeing what's going on. And there's actual danger in that, because a lot of this stuff is relying on the fact that people aren't paying attention. I have been paying attention. There's been a handful of people that are. And we've been telling you that there's a cult. Tim Poole, actually. Love him or hate him, right? I Again, I'm a fucking intelligent person. I can tell the difference between bullshit and not bullshit. But Tim Pool has now just saying it's a cult. And I've been saying that for years. There's a cult. There's a death cult, right? That's taken over. This is true. There's no other word for it. There's no other word for it. And I'm going to show you a video that will, the United States has gone full Evergreen College on us. And it's a fucking cult. And people have been warning you, right? Brett Weinstein warned you. A whole bunch of people who are very smart people have been warning you about this cult and the potential for this to get ugly. And I haven't said cult because it makes you sound like a fucking crazy person, right? It makes you sound crazy. But the problem with I think that's part of the problem with a lot of this stuff in the last few years, is that because this is where the meaning of words is so important, so that when you use those words, you can actually spot them and name it and define it. And I'm so frustrated watching other people with, obviously much larger channels, much larger followings than me, dancing around this cult idea because they don't want to look crazy. Right? They're giving this stuff ideological legitimacy. They're giving this stuff, the only framework that it fits in is a political death cult. Okay? Now, at the end of the day, people who are right are usually sound nuts. But I'll tell you right now, if Mark Zuckerberg is replaced as CEO, that'll be a sign that I'm right. Okay? So, mark my words. So, anyway, I went off on a fucking tangent. What was I saying? My point was, that the definition of words is important, right? Exactly. And so the Pondering Professor just posted that the redefinition of language is the first step. And that's why I have been, I've been getting better at YouTube just so that I can start to talk about this stuff, right? Which is because it starts there. I've talked about this. It starts when you redefine the words. Now, love him or hate him like anyone else, Jordan Peterson was correct. When you control people's words, you control their thoughts, okay? And when you control their thoughts, this stuff is dangerous stuff. This is cult shit. And anybody who has brushed up against a cult or obsessed with cults or understands how they work intricately like I do, or reads a book about fucking cults, or even fucking goes on Wikipedia. Actually, you know what? Let's do that. Hang on, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to fucking show you. Okay? Lifton's Thought Reform. Okay? It's there. It is a playbook. And it has been happening for years, and I've been trying not to fucking say it because I know it makes you look crazy. But the reason that they make it's part of the strategy to make people like me look bad and sound crazy so they get away with the shit that they're doing. And this is all unfolding, okay? It's all unfolding precisely as I predicted. Now, okay, I didn't think it would be this quick. I didn't think it would be this immediate. Right? That's where I'm behind. About 10 days ago, I wrote an article that started, I've been laying low, doing videos, right, under the radar, forming thoughts, observing, dancing around the issue. And then last week, or probably about 2 weeks ago now, I wrote a blog post that sort of teased the left into the idea that there might be a cult on our side that needs to be looked at. Okay? Now, I had a plan, which was that I was going to build on that. Unfortunately, it all just fucking, and now I have to like just sound like a fucking nut job. Fucking hell. But this is legit, okay? All right, let me show you something, all right? Actually, no, we'll do what I was going to do, which is I'm going to share the sheen first. Share the screen. Lifton's Thought Reform, okay? Thought reform and the psychology of totalism, which is totalitarianism, which is what I'm talking about, okay? History, learn it now, immediately. Start to understand history because this is what's happening. And you can sit around going la, 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 and whack a fucking another rainbow on your branding and have all these fucking diversion committees and start. But that's what this is. It is a cult. It's a reality denying, science denying, capitalist, anti-capitalist, fucking chaotic death cult. And I don't care if I sound crazy anymore, because shit is getting real. All right? Now, I will address Antifa, the word Antifa, and I will address like anarchist, and I'll clarify those terms just so that we're clear. Trump's wrong on those definitions, okay? They're not correct. The problem is that there are two parallel narratives running at once, and I am watching both of them, and they're both true and both wrong in different ways. And this is why it's so important that people read different shit now. Okay, please, if you hate Tim Pool, listen to Tim Pool. If you hate Jordan Peterson, listen to him. If you hate Andy No, listen to Andy No. If you hate Wokes, you know, and you hate The Guardian, and you hate the fucking ABC, and you hate all this tribal stuff, it is absolutely critical right now that you know that there are two absolutely different narratives going on. They are both true and both correct and both incorrect at the same time. Okay, and that's how you get to the truth. Right? Please tell me, I'm probably going to get ranty and the gain's quite up a bit on the microphone because, well, yeah, okay, yes. Go, like how, do you know what amazes me about this whole fucking thing is how everyone is talking about Hitler. Everyone is talking about Nazis. Everyone is talking about this and they have no fucking idea that it's happening in plain sight. And it's not Trump. They're using, this is big lie playbook, right? In the gender wars, right? The idea of the big lie, you tell a lie so audacious, right, that people believe it. Like, men can be women, okay? That is audacious. It is wrong, okay? This is what we're seeing, okay? It's all linked. And again, when I say it's all linked, I sound fucking crazy. I hear myself. I'm having a sip of coffee and I have my Children of the Vault coffee mug, which for those who don't know, Borderlands 3, these are cult leaders in the game who basically weaponize all the dumb people to fucking try and get access to power. Ooh, what a shock. Okay. They're YouTubers. Okay, anyway. So, thought reform. Okay, let's look here. Let's look at these requirements. Milieu control. This involves the control of information and communication both within the environment and ultimately within the individual, resulting in a significant degree of isolation from society at large. Okay? How many people block lists? Okay? I've been trying to warn my fucking woke friends, but they all use block lists, of which I'm on, because if you disagree with them or challenge them, they block you. Okay? Now, this is the one that's interesting. Mystical manipulation. The manipulation of experiences that appears spontaneous but is in fact planned and orchestrated by the group or its leaders in order to demonstrate divine authority. This is critical theory in a fucking nutshell. Okay? So let's try that again. The manipulation of experiences that appears spontaneous but is in fact planned and orchestrated by the group or its leaders in order to demonstrate divine authority, spiritual advancement, or some exceptional talent or insight that sets the leader and or group apart from humanity. And that allows reinterpretation of historical events, scripture, and other experiences. Wokeness! Rewriting history. I am more enlightened than you. I understand these things. I am woke. That's mystical manipulation. Okay? They can't pinpoint any of this stuff with anything material. They just know better than us. They know better than scientists, historians, political scientists, everyone else, and they have some divine fucking insight. No, they're in a cult. Okay? Now, demand for purity. The world is viewed as black and white, and the members are constantly exhorted to conform to the ideology of the group and strive for perfection. You want to talk about what happened to Waleed? Okay? You're never woke enough? cancelling their own, the left eats its own, all of those sorts of things that come from the right. Okay? There is no confidentiality, and that works because people are confessing their privilege, and the second that you fucking fall afoul of the group, they turn on you. Okay? There's no confidentiality. Members' sins. Let's talk about the original sin of whiteness, shall we? Okay? So our sins and our attitudes and our faults are discussed and exploited by the leaders. Okay? 5. Here's a doozy. Sacred science. The group's doctrine or ideology is considered to be the ultimate truth beyond all questioning or or dispute. My camera's in front of my screen, so if I read it wrong, Truth is not to be found outside the group. You just wouldn't understand. I'm not going to do the emotional labor. Educate yourself. I don't need to argue because I understand that this is a fact, and you're just ignorant and racist and fascist and transphobic and all of these things. May as well just start rocking up and back and forth, right? They may as well just start speaking in tongues at this point. Okay? There is no wrong bit. The leader, as the spokesperson for God or for all humanity, is likewise above criticism. Now, that's the thing that has actually tripped me up for the last year, when I've said that this is a cult, a legitimate fucking cult. I don't like being right on this, which is that there's no real leader. It's becoming clear to me that this is organised global effort with a view to attempting to overthrow the government, okay? Attempting to overthrow... anyway, I'll get to that. Loading the language. The group interprets or uses words and phrases in new ways so that often the outside world does not understand. Hate, transphobia, bigot. They work in memes. Karen. It's all symbology for these people, right? The jargon consists of thought-terminating cliches. TERF. Okay? Nazi. They use all these things on purpose. They're all thought-terminating things that get you to stop thinking and react and they take you out of your brain into your emotions, right? And out of your logic into your emotions, right? Being called racist, I'm fucking used to it by now, but being called these names usually for your average person who wants social acceptance, right? Cisgender, fucking great example, right? Cisgender, a new fucking word. No, like this is what I'm talking about. And this, like, I've sat there and I've just been seeing these parts, and my spidey senses. One thing about me is that my instincts and intuition are usually pretty fucking spot on. And I couldn't put an intellectual framework around it. This is a totalitarian cult, political cult that is trying to overthrow. They think they're bringing the revolution. That they can destroy everything so that they can rebuild it in the world that they want. Okay, it's fucking terrifying. And you don't have to take me seriously. Good luck. Okay. Now, so loading the language. So the jargon consists of thought-terminating cliches, which serve to alter members' thought processes to conform to the group's way of thinking. Hate speech. Twitter's been captured. I've been talking about this. Twitter's captured by these people. Hate. What does hate mean? We know what that means. It's an emotionally charged thing, right? If someone is accused of hate speech, that must be actually, like, bad, right? Loading the language. Doctrine over person. Okay, let's move on to number 7, doctrine over person. Members' personal experiences are subordinated to the sacred science. Men can be women and gender is real and there are 300 genders, and my experience and feelings and thoughts negates all data that ever existed, because all of that stuff, the entire body of fucking Western fucking existence is all based on white supremacy. What a load of shit. Okay, this is a load of shit, and that's why I will fight this stuff. This is dangerous, okay? doctrine over person. Members okay, here we go. Have you seen the hair color changing? I know it sounds silly, and I know we joke about the blue hair brigade, but what you're seeing is a gradual loss of individual autonomy, right? They have a uniform. Okay? Seriously, they have a uniform. And if you can't spot by now, right, that there's a certain look, it's also a certain facial expression, right? And if you look very carefully, if you want to see if your child is in a cult, look at them. Are they speaking like a robot? Are they speaking like teenagers do that anyway. They don't really have their own, they're not developing their own thoughts. A lot of the time they're parroting sort of other stuff, right? But there's a certain robotic glaze that goes over somebody who has been captured. And it might be, if they're sort of just parroting, that's transphobic, blah, 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 that's diversity and inclusion, blah, blah, blah. It's almost robotic, right? That's doctrine over person, right? Members' personal experiences are so you can't, whoa, here we go. Also, this idea, okay, I'm trying to think of a good example because I wasn't planning on covering this, but I think I have to in order to give context before I show you the fucking video that I'm going to show you, right? Now, so doctrine over person, it means that your personal experiences, personal insights don't matter when it comes, and if you do have a contrary experience, right, you ain't black. Okay, or you're not gay, or if you're this is an interesting one with the trans stuff, right? Which is that you've got actual transsexuals, actual trans people who are saying, I don't believe in this ideology, and then they turn around and call them true scum, and they are TERFs, and they aren't the right kind of trans. Okay, that's cult thinking. That's what doctrine over person is, which is, even though it's like, well, you go, okay, well, I'm a trans person and I don't agree, and it's like, well, you either comply with what we say or you aren't part of the group. It's that kind of thing, right? So any contrary experiences must be denied or reinterpreted, right, to fit the ideology of the group. And the true scum actually is a very good example of that. So now the trans medicalists or true scum people, who are the vast majority of trans people, right? This transgender people thing is not what it seems. But so you must agree that all of these things are true, or you're not part of the group. Dispensing of existence. The group has the prerogative to decide who has the right to exist and who does not. This is usually not literal, but means that those in the outside world are not saved, unenlightened, I've got to get rid of my whiteness, right? Unconscious, and they must be converted to the group's ideology. If they do not join the group or are critical of the group, then they must be rejected by the members. Do you know, I've actually lost a substantial amount of friends over this. People, it's just beggars belief. I'm thinking of one particular, it's just a Twitter friend, but someone who's been a Twitter friend for a long time. And I get a message, and it happens every so often. It happened the other day as well, right? And I'm just so worried, and all I just want to make sure that people work through this, right? Is what will happen is I'll just be going about my day critiquing this thing. And I'll just go about my day being Taya, right? Being right, but being a bit of a shit stirrer at the same time. And I'll get a DM or I'll get an email or I'll get a message and it says, why do you follow Glenna? And I'll go, because I follow who the fuck I want to, is my fucking first thought, but I'm nicer than that. And I go, well, because I think that in amongst a lot of the, I don't necessarily agree with his approach, but I think that what he's got to say is interesting. And also, I follow everybody. I follow lots of people that I disagree with. I follow Andy No. I follow I follow everyone because again, this parallel narrative thing, it is so important to make sure that you stay aware of all of the information, right? Anyway, I'll get a message and why do you follow Glenn? Okay, I agree with that. Oh, is that you, Alaric? Pondering Professor. Sorry, I didn't join the dots. Welcome, welcome. Holy shit, you're a smart boy. I like you. Okay. But this is what I'm saying is I follow Alaric. I don't agree with everything he says about feminism. I don't agree, but we talk about it, right? That's one of those things. So, but it's important that we are able to have that conversation. And the problem with this cult is that it doesn't allow the conversation to even occur because it's a cult and they have doctrine over person and all of this sort of stuff, right? Okay. Their sacred science, their Bible, Judith Butler, Robin DiAngelo, Bell Hooks, but it's probably not Bell Hooks, but, you know, a number of, they fucking, seriously, one thing you want to do, and please don't do this if you are not of strong mind, okay? Please don't do this unless you are of strong mind, which is to go and read Dianetics and then go and read Judith Butler and then read Robin DiAngelo. And it is fucking chilling how similar they are, right? Not long ago, I posted a quote from Dianetics and it was basically like, nobody can impose their data on you. Your identity is fact, right? That's basically the gist of Dianetics. It's chilling, right? The similarities. And I've sat there and I'm like, I don't want to say this, Taya. Don't say it, Taya. It's going to destroy your career. People are going to think you're crazy. People already think you're crazy. What the fuck? What the fuck? And I'm sitting there going, there's this cult, there's a cult, and I've alluded to it and said it outright a few times. And it's just like all signs point to that. So anyway, dispensing of existence. So the group has the prerogative to decide who has the right to exist and who does not. This is usually not literal. What I find funny, and this is another thing, right, which is a lot of these cults, they deflect. So what they do is usually what I've observed lately, especially with the trans movement and all of the sort of the puppets, the happy puppets of all these people, is that they will deflect because I think they know that a few of us are onto them, right? They will then turn around and call you a cult, right? And then they will put out articles saying that that their opponents are what they are, right? That's one of the things that they've been doing. And one of those things is you are challenging my right to exist. Nah. Okay. Again, this is that projection. So these are people that are whoever is in charge of this. Now that's always been the question, is who the leaders are. I think it's actually a decentralized, extremely well funded. I'll give you that. Extremely well funded and extremely well. If you know the theory, you know the strategy, you know history and how it unfolds, and you know political tactics, and you understand military tactics and all that stuff, which most people really don't, unless you sort of... I can't help but think that it's not a coincidence that this is a movement when most people who have lived through World War II are gone. It seems strange because I think that anybody who's lived through that, who lived through that or is aware of these things, sees it for what it is. It's playbook. It's absolute playbook. So anyway, let's get through the theory. So this is usually not literal, but that means those in the outside world are not saved, unenlightened, unconscious, and they must be converted to the group's ideology. If they do not join the group or are critical of the group, then they must be rejected by the members. Now, you may have seen that I was questioning the black box on Instagram, and also this meme that went around, and this is the thing that I found very, very chilling. Right? Okay. Anyway, so thus, the outside world loses all credibility. In conjunction, should any member leave the group, he or she must be rejected also. Now, that's fucking suppressive person, fair game stuff. I've talked about this before, right? We won't bang on too much about that. I wasn't planning on talking about that, so we'll just, whatever. But now, the thing that you may have seen me being very I saw a meme go around. I should probably find it for you, but I can't be fucked because I like to prepare. You know how I am. But it was basically that merely being not racist is not enough. You must say that you are anti-racist. Now, People, there's nothing wrong with that's a thought terminating meme. Okay, that is it's by design, right? Because it forces you to use their language and their terminology, which is anti-racist, right? For all the fucking people that are talking about dog whistles, they're the dogs, man. It's fucking ridiculous. So again, projection. Children of the Vault, Borderlands 3. If you like games, play it. You might learn a thing or two. What was I going to say? Forgot. What was I saying? Yeah. So it's basically, if you, it's not enough to just not be racist, which I'm not. I'm on record as not. My character, I have nothing, absolutely nothing to say. I've done blackface a lot less than Justin Trudeau, okay, which is 0 times. I have worked in the field as a child protection worker, okay, and I did a big thread about that the other day, where I am just so astonished that people would use the plight of Aboriginal people in this country to virtue signal their cult. Like it just incensed me. Right? Because I've actually been on the ground and I still have trauma from that fucking time, and I will never, ever recover from seeing what I saw. And so for someone to turn around and call me racist from their fucking, share button on Facebook in their nice little office, fuck you. But I'm not using cult language. So that anti-racist, right? It's not true. Okay? Anti-racist is a call to action for people to, much like the fucking COVID app. You remember that? Remember the COVID? Remember that thing? When the Prime Minister basically encouraged people to bully people to install the app. Anti-racist implies an action, which is that you need to act. Okay? And no, you don't. Okay? You need to just not be racist and not condone violence, and it's okay to not be violent. So... Pondering Professor says, don't say horrible things about dogs. It's very triggering. Do you know what's very triggering? Is me talking about language with a fucking professor of linguistics sitting in my stream watching me, because I know that I'm going to fuck up. I don't know everything. I only know political science and digital fucking stuff and persuasion. I don't know the details of language. I just know how the mechanisms in which you use it and manipulate it to persuade people. That's it. Okay. Anyway, so what was I going to say? Can't remember. Anyway, let's talk about definitions. Maybe we'll just talk about definitions. But I think it's important for you to keep those 8 points in your mind. Let me show you something, right? Let me just show you a quick video.
Racism, anti-blackness, or violence. I will use my voice in the most uplifting way possible. And do everything in my power to educate my community. I will love my black neighbors the same as my white ones.
Not a cult. If you observe the behaviour online, you'll see, right? Yeah. See? Nothing that is not a cult behaves in this manner. Nothing. Okay? Or it has an element of, religion to it. Right? I've seen some alarming... Watch Benjamin Boyce. He did... Because if you actually... Okay, I don't know if you're familiar. Alaric may be. A number of you who follow me would be, because you're in the same circles. But what happened at Evergreen College 3 years ago had this element to it. It reminds me, actually. I still laugh, because that actually got me my first Twitter suspension, my first 12-hour Twitter suspension, because I was replying to Graham, because Graham mentioned Evergreen College and he said something about the canoe. And I remember when we were watching it and Paul just said, I hope that fucking canoe sinks. being Paul, just straight fucking, no aggression, just Aussie bloke. I just hope that fucking canoe sinks, just matter of fact. I felt the need to reply to Graham to say, I hope that fucking canoe sinks. And I got a suspension, not because I was reported, but because of the automated, I could see how it's like at Glenna replying to a toxic account with I hope that fucking sinks. I can see how that would get you the algorithmic ban. But it was just funny. But if you watch Benjamin Boyce's channel, right? It's the Voice of Reason, Benjamin Boyce on YouTube, or follow him on Twitter. He was following, and Brett Weinstein, right? Follow what happened at Evergreen College, and everybody, and this is my fucking beef with the left, and this is what brought on my my planned first teaser of what I was going to be writing about with the blog, which was, holy shit, there's a cult. There's a cult on the left, and we keep defending them. Because they use our language, they use the things that, because I went, as I've talked about before, I went to university, I studied political science, I did political science, I did a fucking weird ass degree, because what happened was the arts faculty, I was enrolled in political and legal studies, right? Politics and legal studies. But what happened was midway through my degree, my faculty of arts got dismantled and absorbed into the School of Education. So what I did was I ended up having to do some business law units. I ended up having to do, it was actually really good because I got more economics. I did more law units, and I did some comms, right? And creative writing. I did a whole bunch of fucking weird ass shit, right? And I also did, obviously, philosophy, sociology, those sorts of things as part of my main degree. So I know where these things came from, and I can partially defend them. And my frustration with this cult is that they use and they borrow the terminology. I would argue that the vast majority of people who are parroting these words have never actually read the books. They don't understand what they're talking about. They just take it like it's a truism, right? And that's what cults do, right? I've said this before on Twitter, which is, and various other places, actually in my article, which is that woke is to social justice like Scientology is to self-improvement, right? When you're early in the cult, like watch, what's that? It escapes me now. The big fucking famous Scientology doc, Going Clear. Watch Going Clear. And what they talk about is that initially it sounds fine. So it sounds like self-improvement, help, therapy. You find a sense of belonging. But it's only when you're sort of at a certain level that you go, shit, this bit be crazy. But by the time you're in and deep into the crazy, you can't get out. And that's how this works. So it's very similar, which is the fact that what they do is on the surface, saying anti-racist is like, well, do you want to have a personality test? Right? Diversity and inclusion / diversion. Do you want to have a personality test? It seems fine, okay? It seems fine. But under the surface of that is everything else, okay? So you want LGBT rights? Great, okay, great. Well, there's a whole entryist component to this as well, which is a big part of the tactics that Antifa and all of those. When I say Antifa, think of Antifa like Bitcoin. It's one thing but it's actually blockchain, right? It's something that's or Al-Qaeda. Oh God, there we go. My stream just got cut. They're a loose group. You need to name something. Antifa and one of again, this whole projection and deflection is, but it just stands for Antifa. No, it doesn't. Okay. Anyway. I can't keep up with the chat. I'll try to get back to chats shortly. But Antifa, I can see what. Okay, now what we're seeing is two weird fucking extreme narratives go on. On the right, they're ignoring. Well, then I don't think they're really ignoring the horrific. The horror. I think only the fucking crazy. No human being that has any nobody who is human could see. I still haven't seen the video, by the way. I refuse to watch it. Someone described to me what happened, and I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch someone die on video, right? I understand why people want to share it, but I also don't. I think there's something weird about people who share violent shit. It's just something about getting jollies. I don't know. I just don't like it. And I know it's human nature. Okay. But anyway, it's just my thing. I refuse to see it. I don't want to. I know what happened, and that's all I need to know. Okay. I can imagine that would be horrific. I've seen way too much traumatic shit in my life to have to voluntarily see more traumatic shit. I don't want to do that. So, what was my point? So Alaric actually said, Pondering Professor actually said, I lived in an actual apartheid country, yes. And I know somebody who grew up in Zimbabwe, right? And I'm sure she wouldn't mind telling you that this is fucked. There's no fucking good end to this, okay? And lived in an actual apartheid country telling people what to think about other races. It's really not... That's the thing. For all of these people who claim to be educated, how do they not know history? Basic history. Anybody with a basic understanding of history, persuasion, and the lead up to World War II, right? And, World War I as well. This isn't happening on a grand scale. We're in, they didn't say it was, we're in World War II now. Guess we'd better start fighting. It happened with a gradual fucking escalation. And here we go. Here's a theory. G7, right? Why is Trump inviting India and Australia when India and China are at odds at the moment? I have a feeling that we're forming a new fucking alliance, right? Against the Axis, right? We know who that is, okay? Grapefruit said I think I'm fucking confused by your avatar because I think you're a boy, but you've got a girl avatar. Grapefruit, grew up in South Africa. Anybody who, I'm very lucky. I've grown up in Perth. I just happen to know my history and I talk to people, and I've also worked on the ground in welfare and on projects and those sorts of things, right? So I understand things at a different level. Very intellectual level, but I know a lot of people who've lived through this shit and the signs are there, okay, that this is an overthrow. Rhodesia was the breadbasket of Africa. Zimbabwe is starving. Yeah, absolutely. It's just so fucking, it's just one of those things where it's just a race to the bottom. Right, it is. It just, no good comes from any of this stuff. And I know it sounds naive, but I probably am more old hippie than anything, an idealist. I tend to be Marxist, but I also understand that Marxism doesn't work as a model. It never was intended as a model, right? It was always intended as a critique of capitalism, right? When capitalism stops, Marxism ceases to exist as well. They work in conjunction with each other, right? I've already talked about Al-Qaeda, and assuming your gender is probably the least of my crimes on YouTube at the moment. At least I don't monetize. Oh, by the way, here we go, ad break. I don't monetize anything because I know that I fucking wouldn't get anything anyway, and I just constantly have to fight bans and stuff. And also I don't have enough followers. So, if you want to support me, you know where to go. Anyway, yeah, Grapefruit said that it's like an ISIS video, right? It just, I think when you, Peter said, when Marxism stops, we can finally run the world on hug power. It's not that. I'm so frustrated because Marx would be as opposed to this as anybody else, okay? It pisses me off. Because you can be a Marxist what is it? what is it? A Marxist in the sheets and a fucking capitalist on the streets. Is that? Can I say that? Does that work? I tend to be. Marxism is a useful framework to critique capitalism. Okay, in terms of the extremes of capitalism, it's not the only framework, but it's a useful one. Class analysis is a valid thing, and if someone would, I was actually saying this to a friend yesterday. I can't remember who it was. No, it was just a Twitter thing where they're dancing around, right? All this woke nonsense, and it's like, oh, I've got this and this, all this, and I'm sitting there going, fuck, if Marx was ever going to return and be like, I know, hey, I know the problem here, oh, pick me. And it is a little bit like that, right? And the problem, I think my frustration is with the parallel narrative on the right, is a misrepresentation of what Marxism is and does. A lot of the people that, they're not, okay. Marx actually was a libertarian. He was not an authoritarian. And there was a split in the socialist movement post-Marx that sort of went into Marxist-Leninist and then into Trotsky. You've got to understand the splits in history. I've talked about this before on previous things. But there's been splits, right? But again, Marx is lost in all of this. This is postmodernism, and Marxists hate pomos as much as anybody else. Okay, so anyway, Marx would be he would be opposed to this, right? He would, from what he fucking lived. He was basically like me, where Marx would have had a Patreon account because he literally had a patron in the form of Engels, right? And Engels, anyway, let's not fucking... But if you understand your history, you know what this is, okay? This is a pomo cult. And I'm going to lose everybody, but I'm going to defend postmodernism for a moment. This is not even a postmodern cult. Cults, like I've said before, cults borrow from everything else. So what this cult has done, right? And I've been researching this for some time, is gradually infiltrate every group. It's entryist strategy. It's Trotsky strategy, right? Very famously known by Trotsky. Not very famously, very obscurely. Famously for people like me, obscure for everybody else. But look up Trotskyism, right? It's the problem with trying to pin this down in ordinary... a lot of this stuff, right? Let me just think my thoughts. I've tripped over myself. My brain went faster than my mouth. Just let me take a sip of water. Okay. Yes, I used metal straws like the fucking greenie that I am, right? So the thing that a lot of people don't understand theoretically, and I think I've talked about this before. There's a famous saying, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Okay? So it doesn't. So when history repeats, it's never identical. It's a version of what happened before, but it morphs and changes to the point where we don't really have a word for it until later on. Like I said before, World War II, they didn't know they were in World War II, right? They didn't, before Hannah Arendt wrote about totalitarianism, right? Totalitarianism was only a thing when it happened. So the problem, they didn't have a word for it. They're sitting there going, this is a phenomenon. They were doing this exact thing during Nazi Germany, going, I don't understand what's happening. It looks like this over here, and it looks like this over here, and it looks like a bit of this over here, right? This is a new phenomenon that's related. And so when I expose you to different things, that's what I'm doing, is that there will be a new word for it, which is that this does look to be like a new and improved, rebadged totalitarianism 2.0, okay? And the role that digital fandoms have played in this is astonishing, and that's where I've been interested because I've been following this stuff as a digital citizen and UX designer and all of that sort of stuff for some time. And gender has been the thing that's at the crux of that. The gender wars, the turf wars, all of these things, right? The fucking knitting wars, right? If you're across lots of different communities, you watch it happen. You watch it get a couple of crazies move in, a couple of cult members move in, right? They start shit and eventually it's theirs. Okay, that's entryism. All right. So this has been happening, and that's why I'm saying that the murmurs are there that Zuckerberg's going to lose Facebook. The term for our era is Kali Yuga. I don't know what that means. I've missed that. See, I'm quite happy to know when I admit when I don't know a term. Right? That's interesting. I'll have to look that up. I'm going to write it down. Hang on. Kali Yuga. All right, I'm going to look that up. So when I talk about this is, but okay, so start again. What's different from a political movement versus a cult is that a political movement is grounded in actual ideology and has some reason to it, okay? A cult has a religious aspect to it. You saw the video that I showed, right? And there's others, right? You see the one, I couldn't find it this morning, right? I will look at the video, but I can't while I'm fucking streaming. I will look at it. I've got the link. I just can't do it while I'm streaming. I can't multitask. I don't have a producer. As much as I would love to do that, I can't. But what was I going to say? Actually, you're a linguist. You might actually be able to start naming this because the phenomenon needs a name. So what better than Professor? Yeah. You're not watching me work right now. You get a producer? Okay, give me money. I don't have any money. So, all right. Or get me funded. There you go. And I will make the greatest, smartest talk show on YouTube if I have the money and resources, but I don't. At the moment, it's just me and a camera. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so cults. So what entryism, right? Again, so what cults do is they have the same. So the important thing to know about cults is that cults are. What makes a cult is that they behave the same way, right? So if you look at like Jonestown, is it Unification? Unitarian. I always get those two confused. The Moonies, Scientology. All those sorts of those cults, right? Their belief systems are different, but their behavior is the same. And that's what the difference is, right? Whereas a political ideology, again, they're just different, right? Political movements generally work within the system, aside from, the most crazy. Now, unfortunately, it can't really be done remotely. I should actually look into that. There might be tools that can do that, but I doubt it. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with where I've gotten to in the last couple of years, given that I wanted to spew just being in front of a camera a year ago. So, anyway, but yeah. So so what they use is entryist. I've talked about these things in previous videos. It's a fucking cult. Let's just move on, shall we? Now, anarchy. Now, one thing that pisses me off at the moment, okay. Oh, I was talking about Antifa. So when Trump referred to Antifa, he's a fucking idiot. Can we just agree that he's not a fucking idiot because no idiot can get to a point. I hate him with a passion. He represents everything that is wrong with politics, right? He's a populist, boorish, obnoxious. Just I don't know how. I mean, I can intellectualize how America got the president that they deserve, and it's been brewing for some time. This is the legacy of Clinton. Like, this is once you started, like they started focusing more on charisma than on anything else, right? And you can't argue that Trump's charismatic. Even he just whatever. The patriarchy says I should go hang up the washing for my wife. Be right back. Well, I would argue that it's a patriarchal thought that you feel that putting the washing out is something of note, but let's just leave that. Flick actually brought me back on track. The thing that I've been observing is online organizing. Something that looks very sophisticated, right? It's like if you're, you know how okay, I'm trying to use an analogy, right? And it probably won't work because it's on the fly. But if you're somebody who studies cells, right? You study cells for a living. You're a biologist, okay? And I know you were joking, Alaric, and so was I. It's banter. It's just bants, babes. So, okay. What was I going to say? I was going to make a good point. Oh, yeah, you're studying cells, okay. If you study cells long enough, right? If you sit there study healthy cells long enough, it becomes easier to see when things are a bit off and the cells aren't doing things, behaving the way they used to behave, okay? I think, and that's where with the digital tribes, because I have known, I've been on the internet since 1995. I've been in the middle of these communities. I've observed them. I went through this fucking thing in 9/11 when I wrote about, I have to scrap my book again because this is crazy. Now I have to rewrite things again. I don't have time or money to write books. Anyway, but with thinking about the motherhood group, the mother forums in 2001 when 9/11 hit, I was in the September. My daughter was born actually on September 10th, 2001 at 11:55 p.m., 5 minutes shy of 9/11. And I was out of it in hospital on drugs. And I saw I was so out of it. All I saw was the planes hit and I was out of it. I had a new baby, right? And I was part of a mother group that had the old Yahoo email lists, right? And I saw this massive fucking split occur, right? So I've been through these things, right? Next, you're going to tell me that I'm a feisty one, Professor. Ooh, she's feisty. No, we can joke. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so when you sit there and you observe this, I've seen this happen so many times. And I said, these splits are not like other splits. If you've been part of the flame wars, like I was in Usenet, you've been on IRC, if you've been part of any great internet holy wars, right? This is not that. This is not the flame war. This is someone from the outside pouring kerosene on flame wars, okay? And it's very, very weird. And I saw this early on. I saw this about 10 years ago, right? What's happened with Assange? There we go. Let's add that fucking keyword into the mix to see if this stream stays up. That's if the turf wars hadn't piqued me and pulled that thread for me from this stuff, then Assange would have. Like the way that the mainstream media just turned on him so viciously, and the way our governments abandoned him, it is astonishing. Like I'm just so devastated by what's happening to that man, and it's just crazy. Oh, here we go. The word you are looking for is an axiom. Biological and common phenomenon all have axioms. Even physics has axioms. These are anchors of reality. Language also has axioms. Is that what you're talking? Yeah. And that's what I think that's what it was. Is that somebody who has studied language, who's arguably quite good at it. Talk a lot, but I also write. I've studied language. I studied persuasion, right? I studied the internet. I studied tribal wars and marketing. That's my job, was to study how to fucking change hearts and minds, right? And in UX, right? I know this stuff. Even cult psychology, right? and I've talked about this before, which is marketing has and brands have a lot to fucking answer for when it comes to toying with cult psychology in order to build tribes. Like I need to pull out an old presentation that I did to a major client and also to the Women's Parliamentarian Conference in 2010, where I was talking about how people need to rally their tribes, and I regret that. I didn't realize what I was doing and what I was toying with, right? This is something I know really well. But when you see it at the cellular level, right? And again, maybe it's just my autistic instincts for patterns. When there's an anomaly and more anomalies and then major friendships ending over nothing. Like I talk about the coriander thing before, right? I go look at my old coriander video where the Perth Twitter community started nicely, but then there was a major rift over coriander. Believe it or not. Cilantro, for those that don't know what coriander is. Right? Crapefruit says, I used to create civil wars in subreddits for fun. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that maybe it's just the old trolls, the old people, right? Like us, the old Gen X trolls who used to fucking, I used to, a big part of, I'm very careful about who I talk about who I work with, especially right now. But, I got a number of celebrities, a number of people online and manage their communities and, they really, and help them build these tribes, right? And a big part of my job was moderating this stuff, right? So I was president of their fucking community and I've seen them fall and split and fall and lifelong friendships. Like people, and maybe this is the thing where a lot of people still think the internet's not real life, but I've got a number of friends who I've known since they were young teenagers, since they were kids, right? I don't want to give too much away, but Ingrid Michaelson was a part of my community as a young kid trying to get discovered as a musician, right? And she was constantly trying to, promote her stuff, and she's great. And, those sorts of things. This is stuff that I've seen, right? And back on MySpace, I remember, little Ingrid trying to get discovered on MySpace, right? This is how far it goes. But it was always fun. There was always an element of fun to it. And at some point it stopped being fun. And I contributed to that. And so but coriander is a very divisive herb, but I'm saying this ended friendships. Like this conversation ended friendships, right? Semiagog, I haven't heard of it, but I'll go back through the chats and check stuff out. But yeah, so I think maybe it's just it's a perfect storm. This was what my book was about, was basically telling through my stories how my micro level, this weird ass revolution that's happening around me right now, a civil war is happening around me, where I feel like I'm the only person or number of people or handful of people. Tim Pool and I are actually seeing a lot of the same things, and it's very funny because I'm sitting there shouting at the screen going, that's what I said. That's what I said 3 weeks ago. Fuck you. He doesn't watch my shit, so it's just parallel thinking. And I think anyone in this space is seeing the same stuff. But there's a fucking cult. Anyway, I wandered off. But this is, it has outside interference. It has to. It's so well funded. This is not a spontaneous thing. It's just, what's upset. And this is why, and I don't want to fucking go down the trans path, but it's so well funded. It's incredibly well funded, right? No, I was saying this years ago. I just wasn't saying it. When I said 3 weeks ago, I said the stuff he is saying today, I already said. It doesn't mean that I didn't know this 6 years ago, just to be clear, okay? I was actually ahead of that. I've been observing this behaviour like we were talking about before. I started to see this happen probably 2011, 2012, where I was just like something wasn't right. And a lot of that was through Jezebel, which used to actually be a fairly decent website, but I was studying Jezebel as sort of my main case study of how intersectionality as a concept had derailed. Because again, I know the theory, and I was just watching this, right? Watching it implode in real time. It's fucking amazing. But it was a cult, right? And I didn't realize at the time. I was just like, what the fuck's going on here? That's not what that means. That's not what intersectionality means. That's not what this means. That's not what trans people are. What? Men can suddenly say that they're women and we just go, yep, okay. I thought that it was established, and and over time, those gradual things where I just went, hang on, this isn't again, it's just because I've got that unique, I wouldn't say, well, I'm not unique, but I've got an unusual skill set, right? And an unusual collision of on the ground welfare work, right? Basically because I change careers every fucking 5 minutes, but it's been wholly digital, right? What I study and what I always have done digital shit for money, right? As a consultant, I've always done user experience, always done design, always done that sort of production side of things. But the things that I do in my spare time have always been very much about research, and they never made sense up until now. Now they make sense because it all comes together. So, and political campaigning and all that sort of stuff. So, I think it's just because I have a weird Venn diagram that explains some of what's going on here. And it's an absolute collision, and I just see what's coming next. And that's why I've actually messaged all my friends in tech, and I've said, and they're not watching the news or anything, and I said, Zuckerberg, they're going to try to get rid of Zuckerberg. And there's a reason for that, right? I haven't talked about anything that was on my fucking list today, by the way. Watch for Zuckerberg, right? They're already protesting him internally. I'm seeing on the chatter on LinkedIn is really fucking weird. You've got people announcing that they're quitting as a result. The reason that they're doing it. Okay, before I tell this bit, the thing that you need to know about what was I going to say? I need a drink of water. Hang on, let me think. Let me think. It's a live stream. There's no pressure. I forgot. I'll come back to it. Can't remember. Oh well. But yeah. One thing you need to understand about woke, this cult, right, is the crime that you commit doesn't matter, right? The fact that this is about George Floyd gives it more legitimacy, right? However, the way that this cancel culture or woke cult works is that the crime doesn't matter. When they're ready to go after you, they will go after you. When it is strategically, when it makes sense to turn on you, they will turn on you, right? I've been talking about this shit for ages. They haven't come after me because I am right now not of strategic interest to them, okay? But the second that I do, it'll be on, right? I'll be doxxed and all that sort of stuff. So that's how they behave. It is never about what they did. Look at the knitting wars. Fuck me. If you need, I want to talk to some people from the knitting. Do you know what? People from the knitting wars are so traumatized by what has happened to them that they don't want to speak up anymore, right? There is the knitting community, right? Not little old ladies, just, like knitting. Holy fucking shitballs, okay? A whole bunch of these people have infiltrated the communities, and they infiltrate every community, right? Look on Reddit, you'll see it. And the fandoms, right? If you go into different fandoms, Harry Potter fandom is a big fucking rift at the moment as well because J.K. Rowling is a fucking turf and all that stuff. But the crime is not, it's never about what the person did. It's that they're now a target for the pack and they will find something, okay? It's that they choose the target first and they find the crime, okay? That's very important, right? Because the George Floyd one is the yes, unfortunately, they're hiding behind a legitimate issue, right? And that makes it very, very, very fucking hard. And they've seen their opportunity. And when I say they, I'm just speaking generally. Actually, yes. Oh, I was going to talk about no, hang on. Stay on point. Let's finish the Zuckerberg point. So, the reason why everyone is up in arms at Facebook at the moment is like my stream before, which was that Twitter was fact-checking Trump and standing up to Trump. Mark Zuckerberg has said he will not do that he believes in freedom of speech and he is he is the fucking president of the United States, right? Zuckerberg has made a brave stand and I back him 100%. Please hire me. I really want to work at Facebook just because I'm a nerd, man. So basically that is his high crime. My high crime is saying men aren't women though, but whatever. We've all done it. But the key thing is to understand that it's never about the issue that it looks to be about. That's why it looks like it doesn't make sense. But it is basically waiting in the wings to go after him and using useful idiots, right? Useful woke fucking idiots, right? If you have a problem with the CEO, then quit, man. Don't just like Facebook. They're well fucking paid. Shut the fuck up. You spoiled little shit. Anyway. So, yes, the thing is, they've actually neutered Jack. So, if you know what's happened at Twitter, Jack doesn't control Twitter. Right? He doesn't. Twitter has been captured and it was some time ago. And that's clear, right? If you have been on Twitter as long as I have and read like all of the history of Twitter and all that stuff, Jack's neutered. He's a figurehead, right? He has no power. But Zuckerberg is making a stand, right? Jack didn't. Jack's a woke bloke. And you may notice that the CEO of LinkedIn has changed to a woke bloke as well, okay? I haven't dug into him yet, but that's an interesting change. I've got to look into that. LinkedIn, people forget about LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's a fucking weapon as well. A different type, which is sharing this cult nonsense. And because all the numpties, the business numpties are on there, they just go, oh, diversity and inclusion, that sounds like a good thing. Maybe I shouldn't question that. What does that mean? Oh. And then this fucking cult takes over because no one's willing to fucking lead. Because Me Too scared the shit out of them. Anyway, so I think I empathize with Jack. I do. And I feel like he knows he's captured, man. Right? He's captured well and truly. And I think he's excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry about that. That's what happens on a live stream. Especially in this corner that I seem to be allergic to. Yeah. But can you imagine how LinkedIn would be extremely powerful when it's people's livelihoods, right? I've done videos on things like brand yourself and your social reputation, right? Mine's in the toilet for obvious reasons. But, yep, that's it. Wouldn't it be ironic if I was literally the only person not outside and protesting and I fucking died of COVID right now? Fucking hell. I've done all the right things. Although indoors seems to be the thing, so who knows. But LinkedIn is actually, and I've been meaning to, see, I was going to start rolling content out, and on my roadmap was a absolute skewering of the psychological warfare. And it's class warfare and absolute disgrace that is LinkedIn. If you look at social networks, right? If you study social networks like you do human networks, right? Let's consider LinkedIn to be its own nation and Facebook to be its own nation and Twitter to be its own nation with a number of sort of states and tribes and stuff within it, right? Peter said, quick, go march in a protest to cure myself. Yeah, fucking. The best tweet was Lee Mays, comedian. those perfect jokes where any more words or any fewer words and it ruins the joke. It was just perfect. And all he tweeted was, "I can't believe racism cured the coronavirus." Fuck, it was the perfect joke. Anyway, so with Facebook, right? So think about Facebook like a country. If you were, let's have a thought experiment here. If you were a communist, wanting to become communist China, and I'm speaking generally here, but if you were that, what country / company would, if you didn't actually already have your own country like communist China that could do surveillance and identify people, identify dissidents, get their data, locate them, right? Silence them. Which institution / country would you want to own as part of this war, right? And I'm sitting there going, fuck, if they get, and Zuck is at the coalface of that. I can't believe that I'm saying this and he doesn't agree. He's a smart dude, man. And he's been on the internet as long as I have. He's savvy. He sees shit. My brain works like his. I'm a burger, man. I know it. He both understands people and doesn't, in a way that I understand people, which is the way that we don't understand people. We understand them in a different kind of way, right? We see all the moving parts of people. We don't necessarily, without all of that other stuff, right? Which makes us immune to cults. And to an extent, either very, very gullible or immune, depending. Anyway, fucking don't go off on a tangent. So I see that Mark Zuckerberg is at loggerheads with this cult who are staging walkouts, putting political pressure on him, right? And I don't trust Sheryl Sandberg to be loyal to Zuckerberg. Miss Lean In, I don't trust her. There we go. I'm calling it. Knife in the back. Anyway, be interesting to see. I'm see, this is where I can't prove it. I'm listening to my instincts right now. I think that he has actually I could be wrong. I don't trust her. I don't trust her. Anyway, good luck getting a job at Facebook now, Taya. Anyway, but I think we're seeing walkouts from staff over this. We're seeing all the symptoms of this that I've been covering for about a year now, over with Google and the diversity inclusion. Amazon is absolutely captured, right, by this stuff. And all they need to do is just say, yep, now's the time, and they can fucking destroy whatever company from within, right? I know this sounds crazy. Sounds crazy. It's just where my mind goes. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I like being wrong. When it comes to things like this, I like being wrong. So that's why I feel like Facebook, something like Facebook, Twitter is, like we've already seen the misuse of power with Twitter, right? But they were all symptoms, right? I had no idea I don't know. The more and more I see this, I've been giving the benefit of the doubt. I have optimism bias with this, which is that it's just a phenomenon. I don't know that that's the case. It feels like an insurgence the more I look at it, and it looks like it's planned. And the fucking bricks. What's with the bricks? Right? But you imagine someone laying bricks everywhere, right? And figuratively speaking, imagine there's bricks at Facebook headquarters in the form of, internal policies, right? Removal of the CEO, those sorts of things. They're all, metaphorical bricks ready to go. And all you need is someone to fire the first one, right? Throw the first one. They've already got those. Crapefruit said, imagine a random meme generator with some machine learning. It's a devastating AI weapon. They're already there. It's already there. That horse is bolted, right? Most of this stuff, right? It's not funny anymore. It's actually legitimately scary. And when you sort of read a lot of Facebook's research papers and that sort of stuff, you can see it. Anyway, I don't want to be a downer, but I think it's just something I think is important to watch. I don't want to go down the Soros path because it seems like that's where it heads into conspiracy theory town. But a lot of conspiracy theories are proving true. Flickr sent me something really interesting, which is that a lot of actually they'll do some of the original data about hydrochloroquine, I can't remember what it's called, that stuff, right? The original data that said that it didn't work, in light of all these riots and everything, suddenly the mainstream media are releasing stuff about the fact that COVID might have come from a lab, and they're going completely back. All the people that were dismissed as kooks like 3 weeks ago, suddenly, now that there's a riot on, they're doing all these like stealth articles where they go, oh shit, it looks like it might have been from a lab. It looks like it might have been this. Oh yeah. So all the conspiracy theories were actually fucking turning out to be true. Right. And so it's just, it's I don't know. That's the problem. That is the problem. And I think that this is actually on purpose. I think a lot of this fake news, Trump was right about that one thing, which is not to trust the news media. I think it would have been better said that it's a good idea to read lots of media, lots of different media, not just rely on one, right? They're all full of shit, right? Yeah. Pondering Professor, I was banned from Twitter. You were banned from Twitter too for saying men have XY chromosomes and it cannot be changed. Yeah. Let's go back to sacred science and Lifton's thought reform, right? It's very weird seeing this play out. What was my point? Oh yeah, it was also banned for saying hormone therapy on 3-year-olds is human experimentation, which it is. That's the thing, right? I did a Facebook post yesterday, which was like, so on one hand, I was like, I'm so fucking confused right now because when you actually scrape the surface of the cult, what they're saying is that silence is complicit, but shut the fuck up, right? That you don't need, feelings are facts, data is oppression, and saying anything truthful is hate speech. How is that not a fucking cult? Right? And that's why when people talk about, try to pressure me to do their cult shit, I'm not doing it. Right? That's the thing. That's the hill I will die on. This will be, my name isn't, change it to Taya Winston Smith. And it's not a coincidence on Facebook. Which is Winston Smith, that famous last scene in 1984, right? That will be me. It will be my dying breath. I will fight it, right? Yeah, words are violence, but bricks through the window, that's just peaceful protest. Fuck off. I don't hate Trump. Okay, actually, I need to clarify. I don't actually hate anybody. So Joseph Stalin, which is a great fucking name, right? I don't know why you hate Trump, right? Imagine corn pop Biden at the helm. I don't hate anybody. I despair that those are the choices. 380 million people, is it now? Something like that. Slowly becoming 300. That those are the only choices, right? Because I studied politics, I love a big part of my thesis when I was doing undergrad was around, the American Bill of Rights and whether we should have one in comparison to American systems, right? And the American system is for all its flaws, right? It is an incredibly robust, beautiful thing. The fact that I just like people who have foresight, right? The fact that some old dude fucking, in the 1700s, right, foresaw, had to have core principles and core values documented, and an entire country, like things like balance of power. The fact that they foresaw these things because they understood history, right? And I think we may end up in the same position where there's going to be people who understand history that have to rewrite it. Not rewrite history, but write the future, right? That's where we're going to head. I just love that. I have a romantic idea. I also believe, despite what everyone else says, that politics is an extremely noble profession, right? It's hard work. It's thankless work, right? It's not paid well enough, despite what people say. It takes its toll on families, and it is public service is something that should be a calling and a vocation as much as anything else, like nursing or medicine, right? And it should be a profession. And it's something that I feel people like Trump make a mockery of, right? I would love to have a political career, but I can't, okay? Probably because of this kind of thing, right? But I feel like it's something that should be earned, and to lead other people is something that is, you should, well, as they've said, I think there's a saying that says nobody who wants to be a politician should ever be one. Right? It should be something that, you know, leaders aren't chosen. Leaders don't decide that they're leaders. Other people decide if you're a leader. And that's why I feel, I know I'm monologuing about Trump, but I just really want to make it clear, right, that I don't hate Trump. I hate what Trump represents, which is the beginning of the fall of something that I thought could survive it. And maybe it can. Maybe that's where I lead into what Laurie's question from earlier about the Insurrection Act. Now, I don't want to talk about that necessarily. People are saying he doesn't have the power. The president can do what he wants. He fucking does. And what you need to be aware of is the national is what is it? What's it called? Directive 51 that George Bush passed in 2007. That's a fucking creepier one, right? Look that up. You can make... So the pondering professor said, can I make a linguistics point? Yes, you can. Go for it. Yeah. I think that I know history has been rewritten dozens of times in my lifetime. I get that. I understand that history is written by the winners. And that's why, again, I'm saying if this thing plays out to its extreme, which I'm very much hoping it doesn't, right? I am paying attention, Alaric. I'll just I'll wait for you to make your full point. Yeah, but he can do what he wants. Trump has the power to do whatever he wants, right? That's unfortunate, right? It's terrifying, right? I'm going to share this screen. Let's just this is something that you need to be aware of, okay? Which is Directive 51. So this was in 2007, I believe. Yep, here we go. So the National Security and Homeland Security Presidential Directive, right? Now, it's worth noting that the details of this are still not public, right? They are still under national security, right? You can't actually even know what's in this directive, right? That's how fucking... This is... So it was signed by George W. Bush in 2007, right? And it's a presidential directive establishing a comprehensive policy on the federal government structures and operations in the event of a catastrophic emergency. Such an emergency is defined as any incident, regardless of location, that results in extraordinary levels of mass casualties, damage, or disruption severely affecting the US population, infrastructure, environment, economy, or government functions. Okay, so the unclassified portion of the directive, so part of it are classified, we don't know what it is, right? It replaced Bill Clinton's 1998 Presidential Decision Directive 67. Let's not go into that, right? So basically the presidential directive defines the national essential functions, and it basically means he doesn't need any separation of powers. President has power to do whatever the fuck he wants to make sure that America gets back up and running again. That's it. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. So the Insurrection Act of 1807. Now, one thing I want to talk about, which I find funny, is these fucking dickheads who don't understand, right? They're like, oh, but it's an old act. Do you know what else is an old act? The fucking Constitution. That's an old law too. Old laws are still laws until you repeal them, you fucking idiots. Anyway, so yeah, again, some of this may be unreliable because of the protest that's going on at the moment, right? But this is irrelevant. So all he's done is threaten it. And he's just, again, I'm not getting into it. The thing that made me, all right, I'm going to tell you what gave me chills, right? And then I'll look at Alaric's thing. The thing the other night, I watched it. Right? I saw it on my laptop screen, right, on Twitter. And it didn't have the level of detail that, I just watched it and I was like, oh, he's just fucking being Trump, threatening, whatever, being a dick. Saying if Obama had said the same thing, he would have said it slightly better, but the strategy was basically pull your heads in or I'll pull it in for you, right? That said, when I saw it on the big screen on the news, there's just something that it really actually had quite upset me. I still kind of choke up, so if I do, I apologize. There's something in him. And again, maybe it's just because I observe people and I can read them. Like I can look through someone and go, okay, I know whether you're okay or not. He's enjoying it. There's just something off. And that's when I say, and it's nothing he said necessarily. There's a few things he said that he could have said better. But there's a part of me that just gave me the creeps. My spidey senses were like, anybody else in his position, right, would not enjoy this. That's the thing. That's the thing that made me think that this person is quite a monster. I think even it's almost like I get what he was trying to do, but I can tell when something comes from a good place and when it comes from a bad place, right? And I don't feel he is a good person. And I feel like there is something off and he is enjoying the show at a time when this is actually incredibly, the gravity of this. Like even George Bush, right? George W. Bush during 9/11. As much as we were critical of his actions at the time, right? There was something there. There was empathy. There was gravity to it. That was just not there with Trump. And that was the thing. It sent a chill. And that's the thing that actually I was like, fuck, I have to stop defending this person. Again, it's not what he did. I just don't, I trust my instincts. One thing I know, and having lived the life that I've lived and, done the things that I've done over the years, is I know how to spot someone who's not safe, right? And he just put my shackles up. Like if I was a dog, my hair on the back of on my back, I just went, there's something not right about it. He's enjoying this too much. He's enjoying the show too much. He's watching this burn. And I know it's not easy, right? His job is incredibly difficult, but I don't know. I can't explain it. There's just a complete lack of gravity. Yeah, there you go, Flicker. It's a complete lack of, there's just no empathy, right? If I'd been standing there, like even now I'm choked up just thinking about, imagine the country that you love. And this is why I actually said this to Paul the other night. I said, why are the Republicans not trying? Why are they not? One thing I know, even if I disagree with them politically, right? One thing's for sure about Republicans, like your old GOPs, is that they love their country, right? Why on earth are they not moving to get rid of him and going, enough? This is not the country, like this is, you get what I'm saying, right? Which is the fact that he just, I don't know. I don't understand it. even most Republicans love their country, right? I'm talking about GOP politicians, career politicians, conservative leaders, business, heads of business, right? They're fucking, one thing you'll give the Republicans is that they're fucking patriotic. So to see their country burning and to see Trump half smiling, barely able to contain himself, like, that's the thing. That was the thing for me, where I was like, how are they okay with this? Right? And that's why I think a lot of this polarization is not about left versus right, even though there are sort of woke MAGA narratives going on here, right? This is about people. This is an authoritarian, libertarian. This is a institutions democracy. This is a democracy versus totalitarianism war, right? If Trump wins, this is the war of the different. This is a war of different totalitarian movements, and whichever one wins, it's not good, right? So this is where I've been talking about the reasonable people on the left, but I'm also talking about, I want the reasonable people on the right to actually start saying, like, this is not cool, man. Anyway. So okay, I want to get to Alaric's thing. So Alaric said, redefinition of words is important. Why? So redefinition causes cognitive blindness, which is so what is cognitive blindness? It means that even when you hear and see the truth, you're not able to process it. Yes. So when North Korean refugees come to South Korea, they have to relearn Korean. That's really interesting. So just for those who don't know, Alaric, you should come on an episode of the Memeplex podcast. I love such a fucking nerd about, come on as a guest to talk about this. But I did not know that. When North Korean refugees come to South Korea, they have to relearn Korean. He actually works in Korea at Korean University. Are you still there? I believe so. So it's not a matter of dialect. It's the complete redefinition of words. Yes, and that's what we've been seeing. And that's why I've been focusing on this on my channel, because I saw this happening. The words don't mean what they think that you think they mean. Even feminist, right? When I will defend the anti-feminist movement now, right? Because feminism, that's not the brand of feminism that they're talking about. Most anti-feminists, they can't find the words for it because they've taken the word feminism and turned it into something new, right? I'm a second wave feminist and always will be, and in support of the 4 pillars, right? I've talked about this before, which is equal rights, equal pay, fair pay, autonomy, emancipation, those sorts of things, right? Not man-hating bullshit, right? But that's an example, right? So it's not a matter of dialect, it's the complete redefinition of words. They're not able to understand some general expressions, right? So for example, even though you hear the word chicken, you think of an elephant. Is it possible to understand what is being said to you? The same is happening with indoctrination. It's happening in schools and universities. Yeah, the word woman, right? This is why these battles matter. Definitions matter, right? You cannot fight something if you can't define it. First of all, this is at the core of language, right? Listen to this guy, man. He's actually got a YouTube channel. He's really cool. This is why the new language forms are being pushed, due to the fact that it works. It has in the past, it does now, and it will in the future. And this is why when I say stop talking about hate, stop talking about hate speech, stop talking about words like anti-racist, they don't mean what you think they mean. Feminism, they don't mean. Transgender doesn't mean what you think it means. Okay, there are transsexuals. It's not the definition that when you think of trans, it's not that thing that's in your head. They've changed it. Okay, you need to understand that. Okay, and this is when it's even more important to do that. So yes, I'd love to talk about the North Korean South Korea thing. That's fascinating that they have to relearn it, and we're seeing that now. I see this gap, right? With my kids, like the meanings have changed, right? It's crazy. Thank you for that insight. So redefinition equals change in in linguistic intake equals change in cognitive behavior, which equals change in actual behavior. Yes, and that's why Jordan Peterson was right about the pronouns. Okay? If you can pick that, because everybody can identify a he or a she or, whatever, right? I don't actually use pronouns in my everyday vernacular, so it's very weird. I just use people's names, just basically because I've taught how to communicate properly, and I don't talk about people behind their backs. And what people say behind my back isn't my business, so I don't give a fuck. But this is why it's so important. This is why it looks like we're quibbling over things that aren't important, but they're so important. Because the language is everything. Okay? It's the way we communicate, it's the way that we communicate meaning. Now, this is what's happened with Twitter, which is that they use the word hate, right? And hate means like saying something like okay dude on Twitter, or saying that men have XY chromosomes, right? It's concept creep. And this is deliberate, okay? And this is why I've been harking on about it and looking crazy. But that's also why we need to make sure that we stop, because the problem is that also throwing things around as slurs like Nazi, communist, cult, because unfortunately, when we are actually facing that, when we say it, it loses its gravity, right? So for me, I'm saying this is a cult. I mean it. I'm not saying it on Twitter to say, cult. I'm saying this is a cult by every definition, by every marker. And the only reason that I haven't actually said it is because everyone's calling everyone else a cult on Twitter. And I can't help but think that that's by design, because it's hiding in plain sight, so that when I say it, I just sound like I'm being some partisan fuckwit. Yeah, so this is not an organic change in language. Languages change all the time, but it's forced. Yeah. These are engineered changes. Oh, fuck, without a doubt. These are very dangerous tools. Yeah, these are absolute. And I suppose that's and I think you're like me, Alaric. You were early on to this stuff as well, where I think linguists, people who understand systems, people who observe things at that granular level, right? You see that little shift and you understand, but you also understand sort of the systems underneath it. So linguistics is something where you break language apart and you understand how the micro works with the macro. And political science is the same, except it's people and institutions, right? It's the same thing. They're not the same thing, but it's the same approach. We're able to sort of get that macro view and then that micro view and sort of connect the two together. And when something's off in the matrix, we can see it. And and that's exactly why I feel like this is more and more by design. And the reason why I haven't talked about this in any real formal way is, first of all, because I sound crazy when I use the word cold, right? So I had to be dancing around it. And second of all, one of the requirements for a cult is charismatic leadership, or an end goal, or some sort of end game. Now, that's not clear. That said, the last week, it's becoming clear what that is, right? Look at that video that I showed you before. Should I show it again? Yeah. And so you're starting to see this creep, right, throughout the institutions. And what you do is you get lots and lots of useful idiots. I'm seeing people, mostly people who haven't gone to university. Okay, all right, mostly people who don't have any real critical thinking skills to begin with. Very good people, smart people, run businesses, going around talking about things like hate. Like it's just a fucking foregone conclusion that everyone has shared meaning there, right? And what they need to understand is that they're fueling something that's not true. That's not correct. Then it's not, yeah. Anyway, but they're useful idiots. Your video. I can't show YouTube videos on this thing because I'm on a Mac and it doesn't allow you to play system audio, okay? But what I'll do is I'll put a link to it. All right, I will. I promise. Next time. Sorry, I really I can, but that would require me stopping a stream and doing all that stuff. So part of the reason, right? Yeah, people from university are brainwashed to an extent. Again, I think I'm going back. I was going back to my point about this, which is that cults borrow theory. They don't necessarily. They're not necessarily the theory. Critical theory does have. I mean, it's gone off the fucking rails. Like it's absolutely gone off the rails. In the masters that I'm doing at the moment, I had to shift. I couldn't take it anymore. It's not the critical theory, not sociology that it was 10 years ago. Right now, it's basically like, yeah. Oh my god, it's just cornflakes. It's just money, right? If you're a doctor of philosophy, a doctor of I don't know if it has any real meaning anymore, because they just churn it out. It basically you could just put it into a generator, Judith Butler fucking generator at this point. Yeah, Macs are great. Yeah, I'll share the video. Right, I use a Mac because I'm a designer, Alaric, and I UX designer, and my core workflow relies on a Mac, and. But if I ever do this full time, I will definitely get a PC. Yeah, I'm not going to get into PC versus Mac. Fucking hell, I'm going to ignore that. I'm sick of tribal wars. It does the job, okay? All right. So this, I don't know if this stream helps to provide some context to why I've been objecting to what I've been objecting to, and why it seems silly and partisan. It's not. The thing is that these things are so fragile to begin with, right? And what we're seeing in the US is a breakdown of that. Now, I know that so the Insurrection Act of 1807, I know I need to address that for Laurie. Now, I've got another question. So basically, the US has gone full evergreen college. Look that up. All right, let me go over here. Because I actually wanted to talk about why this whole thing actually benefits capitalism. There's a socialist argument for wokeism, for anti-wokeism, right? Aside from the fact that it's mental, right? Yeah, I've talked about that in previous. Grapefruit said they linked it. They used to be friendly, and then they linked it to our real names, and it became serious. Absolutely. Well, they didn't. Facebook did. Facebook and Google did. Anyway, so okay. So what was I going to say? Oh, Thomas is here. Hello, one of my very loyal patrons. Thank you. So there's a couple of questions that I got that are probably not really my area, to be honest. But I am going to address them just because they were asked. And I'll move on, okay? Because the answer to all of this stuff is nonviolence. Anarchy. That's what I was going to talk about, actually. Trump. Okay, they need to stop saying that it's anarchy. All right, it's not correct. They're not anarchists. Anarchists are generally have a principle of nonviolence. It just means without leadership. Okay, they are totalitarian, communist, Trotskyist, okay? That's the closest. There's a number of different ones, but they're basically fucking more like Trotskyist than they are anarchists. Anarchists on the right, you've got your anarcho-capitalists, and they have the basic principle of non-violence, right? So the whole foundation of their entire ideology is that let the market decide and people negotiate for themselves, and the government shouldn't play a role in that, right? The anarchists on the left, I think, they're sort of more into the whole sort of commune and guilds and that sort of situation, right? Marx was actually more of an anarchist than authoritarian, right? So I just want to clear that up. They're not anarchies. The anarchy in the sense that it's chaos, that's not anarchy, okay? So they're not anarchists. They say they are, but they're not, okay? Clear that up. Now, Antifa. So he's wrong about that. I've said this before earlier, right? Antifa is like saying Bitcoin when you mean blockchain, and blockchain can be any number of different things, but they have the same framework, okay? So he shouldn't have, and that's where I think a lot of, the fucking cult members will just deflect and project and ignore that. But a lot of the stuff that I wrote with the Why Won't the Left Deal with the Threat of Totalitarianism article talks about that, which is that the elders of the left, the adults like myself, don't acknowledge that these people exist, and they do. I fucking brushed up against them all the fucking time. Everybody knows the trots. Stop defending them. Stop defending them, okay? The trots are a problem. They need to be dealt with. They need to be gone out of mainstream political discourse and back to the fringes where they belong, okay? Because they're fucking crazy, all right? So now, I don't think that this is, I think that, and in light of this cult, right, where I talked about where the crime doesn't matter and that George Floyd is, well, he was a convenient excuse, but he was just the catalyst for something that was already planned anyway. I thought it would be around Christmas time. I thought it was coming. I thought I had time, right? Yes, the professor can buy me a PC after he gets my funding organised. Absolutely. Get me a book deal or a fucking GoFundMe and all that stuff, and I'll do whatever you want, man. But, at the I have the Mac, because the Mac and the work on the Mac and the Creative Cloud and all that sort of stuff, that pays my fucking bills. So anyway, anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, I need to get all that Nazi money, all that apparent, the international network of powerful lesbians and the alt-right and all of the Nazi money that apparently exists. It's all just, there's no money in the middle here. What was I going to say? There's no money in being actually reasonable. That's the thing. You have to be like fucking full-on crazy Alex Jones and sort of courting the alt-right, pandering to them, or you need to be full-on fucking bullshit, woke, like, and all that sort of stuff. There's no, when both sides hate you, there's not a lot of money in it, and that's okay, because I also don't like, I don't want any one tribe to claim me. I just want to start thinking, right? I'm betting on, yes, being neutral pays very badly, but I'm also banking on the fact that no one's ever fully neutral, right? I declare my biases, right? I'm a Marx fan. I'm a feminist, right? But none of this represents. I'm actually just trying to defend the things that I love against these fuckwits. But I think that more and more there is going to be a growing need for people to talk to someone who just goes, fuck, I'm not crazy. Because one of the MOs of all of this is all of the gaslighting that's going on with the left, right? With all of the left, you know what I mean? With, the mainstream media and all the wokes online and all this social pressure, immense social pressure to put that black box up, to share that meme, to declare your sins and commit to original sin. And, are they going to start having fucking baptisms on the street? I mean, Jesus Christ. So if you're if you're in a workplace, and I've been seeing that people are being fired, right, for not openly declaring that they're anti-racist. Like, this is scary shit, right? And this is crazy. So I think that more than ever, neutral voices are needed. And I don't claim to be neutral, but people who just say it's not you, there's a cult. It's not you. I swear it's not you. It's a weird ass religion, and they're bullies, and that's why I just sit there and I go, I'm not joining your cult. I am not religious. I am not racist. Don't you fucking, yeah. Anyway, so that's my stand. Make my stand. If you can introduce me to guests, I would most love to speak to them. So I try, I try to be Switzerland in all of this stuff. But I also know that I also happen to know that I am, if we are in the grips of a cult that cannot be reasoned with and is violent and is not rational and is as dangerous as I think it is, I know I'm on the list. I'm already on their turf blocker, like all these Twitter block lists, right? You can't, they keep those, they back them up. and they attach your username. And for me, my real name is everywhere. I could be found in a second, right? I know I'm on those lists, and I think most of us are. But for me, because I'm out in plain sight, right, there's a good chance that Paul and I have had a conversation. If they show up at our door, what are we going to do? it's this is a legitimate thing. So but it's not. I'm fully aware that I'm on those lists. Oh, they also, just so you know, for those who aren't aware, these Nazi turf blocker fucking block lists, right? They've got master lists. You might think that they're just for blocking on Twitter, which is their right, which is fine. But they also export that to CRMs and try to build databases of people, right? So this is a master list of people that gather information. So if this, right? Yeah. If this escalates to its extreme conclusion, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. Like, this is one of those things. I'm just taking this to its extreme conclusion. There's a chance that I will lose my Twitter account, I'll lose my voice, and they show up at my door. That's usually what happens. Unseating Zuck is going to be the fucking canary. They banned Titania McGrath. They've suspended or banned Titania McGrath. If that doesn't, the parody account, if that doesn't worry you, that should. Yeah, I actually agree. Pondering Professor, just tell them to fuck off. That's what I'm doing, because I don't care what they think of me. I am trying. They're a lost cause. They're a cult. You can't tell a cult member that they're in a cult. But what you can do is, for those that are dabbling around the cult's ideas and are at risk of joining that cult, to fucking snap some sense into them and say, oh shit, there's a different point of view here, right? And that's my role right now, is to say, no, I am not joining this cult. It is a cult, and that's cult language. Please stop sharing their stuff. Okay, so it's going to go well for me. Either way, it's going to be like, oh, I hate Trump. And if they win, I'm fucked. And if the wokes win, I'm fucked. So fuck it. I may as well just say what I want. I use bad language. I use it because it's powerful and emotive. And I think that it communicates just how strongly I feel about this. I say, fuck off. I am not joining your cult. Right? I leave people like I love watching Heather Hying and Brett Weinstein's podcast, because it's like they say everything I want to say, but so much smarter. I'm just like, yeah, fuck off. Everyone has a role to play, right? Isaac Butterfield has a role to play. I have a role to play. Comedians have a role to play in fighting this thing. So, yeah. So Titania's been banned. Andrew, yeah. So, yeah, we're in trouble, because that account has always been the canary in the coal mine, right? So, yeah, it is a CRM. I tell you, I've seen it. So, originally, this is one of the trans activists were actually getting a GoFundMe together for a piece of technology, right, that would do mapping of networks for people from that list. And so basically they're building a CRM of people. I don't differentiate anymore between trans activists and Antifa. They're all roughly that conglomerate. They've all got different roles, different tribes, different angles in which they infiltrate the organizations, and all of these useful fucking idiots have allowed them to do it. In HR and all that sort of stuff. It's unbelievable. It's astonishing how stupid people have been, right? It's absolutely astonishing how stupid these people are, because they just take everything on face value. That's actually the thing that I think I feel saddest about, is just how dumb people are. My God. And I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, but critical thinking. That's it. Oh, there we go. That's my thing, right? If this was in any way a threat to capitalism, Amazon wouldn't be captured by it. Okay? It feeds it. And do you know why it feeds it? Because it kills critical thought. And the one thing that I know I'm going to jump on a landmine, but one thing that this would be the Marxist view of capitalism when I think it's a valid critique, which is one thing that the extremists, the most extreme parts of capitalism want is you being dumb and fed, okay, and happy, and dumb, happy and fed, right? What better way when you're actually facing people starting to, question the narrative of capitalism, right? What would be, I've said this before, if I could design the perfect ideology to implode my critics, if I was an evil capitalist and I could design the perfect ideology to completely hit this out of the park for the next 3 decades and keep Jeff Bezos in power, right? I would design wokeism. I would, because it makes the left look bad and unelectable, right? It kills Marxist thought. It kills it completely ignores class analysis, and it kills critical thought. Now, how do you, and turning education into sort of, a commodity, yet another product rather than something that creates citizens that can think critically, right? There you go. Educating people into critical thinking, not critical theory, but critical thinking is difficult, expensive, and risky, okay, for people when you're trying to sell them shit. Right? Well, there you go. America is the bastion of dumb, happy, and fed, right? Farm animals. We're farming, right? We're the raw materials. We're not the product. We think we're the product, but we're actually the raw materials for this stuff. Controlled population consuming while a handful of people get fucking all of the money, right? And wealth. Right? Wokeism feeds that because it makes us look stupid. But it's I don't know. Again, I'm not prone to conspiracy, but I'm saying, like, if you understand this through the Marxist viewpoint, religion is the opiate of the masses, as they say, as he said. It's it's fast. Anyway, it's interesting. It's an extension of neoliberalism. Anyway, I've always said this. If it didn't benefit them, they wouldn't do it. Right? This would have been nipped in the bud some time ago. Right? I think it's a pseudo ideology designed to destroy any real critical thinking and any real actual class analysis, whilst rich get richer and all of that sort of stuff. Well, I think religion, we have a lot to learn from religion. There's nothing wrong with ideas, nothing wrong with spirituality. I just think that, like anything, dumb people are the problem. I think fucktwits are the problem. And there's nothing wrong with trying to figure out the meaning of life. That's what everything is, philosophy, science. We're just trying to ask those questions. And I grew up Catholic, well, with a Catholic sort of ethos. It's kind of complicated. My mum was a born-again Christian, but I was raised by my grandmother, who was Roman Catholic, right? And so I grew up Roman Catholic. But I was exposed to sort of the more batshit born again kind of stuff as well, right? With my auntie speaking in tongues and sort of weird shit like that. And so I've grown up with religion, but I always love the Bible stories. And there's always something, like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is fucking interesting at the moment. But what I find interesting, here we go, let me talk about atheists for a bit, right? My beef with atheists is that the Bible is still an important text. You should still see, I read everything as texts. Right, I read Mein Kampf. I want to read Dianetics. I haven't read it because I just think it's I've heard that it's terrible to read and poorly written. But I just want to read like good ideas, not bad ones. But just because you don't believe in the Bible doesn't mean you should reject everything in it, or reject the lessons, or like anything. Right? You don't just, I didn't like Star Wars, therefore fuck Star Wars and fuck all of the ideas and the lessons and the morals in it. It's like, it's an extremely, extraordinarily important and foundational text. Even if you can't take that extra leap into I think that God can exist in many different ways, and I think it's open to interpretation, and you can read the Bible allegorically as much as you can literally, right? And anyway, I think just Billy Connolly said, "Never trust a man who's only read one book." I think that's it. Oh, Billy Connolly. I miss Billy Connolly. Well, he's still here, but he's retired. And George Carlin would be having a field day. But I think, hang on. People didn't want to be judged, so they got rid of God in favor of science. But science attested to highly organized and created axioms, so they got rid of science because it offends feelings. Yeah, and I think the answer is that all things can be true. Well, I just think that being curious and just being spiritual and being open to new information, that's what it means to be, I think, truly evolved as a human being, right? Maybe that's the thing. Maybe we're just more evolved than other people, where we go, oh, this is just a good set of ideas. Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Hadn't thought about it that way. I just lack that desire. Maybe I'm just peaceful to my core, where I don't like confrontation. Even though obviously I talk shit and I'm fucking aggressive with my language, but that's by design. That's persuasive language. But I'm actually a fucking pussy. And I'm peaceful to my core. And so I lack that chip that feels the need to fight someone to disagree with me. Now, when I fell into this, one thing people don't realize, I fell into this ideology for some time, and it changed who I was for a while as well, which is I realized that I was on the attack a lot more. I was defensive. Everything was a problem. Everything could be viewed through the lens of fucking microaggressions. I mean, fucking microaggressions. If you're seeing that stuff everywhere, then you're going to be agitated and anxious all the time. Do you know what I find? I wonder if there is actually a large part of the cure could be in CBT and psychological therapy, but by making people change their view on things like microaggressions. The problem is that we're getting a lot of psychologists buying all of this nonsense as well. I've seen a few people where they're like, oh, I went to my psychologist and she validated that it was colonization that was the problem and it's all trauma and my feelings are real because of all the microaggressions. It's like, well, no, because if you don't see microaggressions, you're suddenly a lot less anxious about the world. It's like they've got it backwards. So maybe how we fight this is at psychotherapy level. Maybe we need to have a campaign for psychologists to say, hey, have you thought about this way? Which is that it's the way that you see the world that's making you anxious, right? It's not your anxiety informing the way that you see the world. So fucking, and this is so crazy, this whole thing. Yeah. I love this. Here we go. Pondering Professor. Physics is a language, DNA is a language, and human language is a language. When there is a constant pattern, it stops being coincidence. Yes. Do you know what I love about this? Is that the scientists will always say everything is science, and others will say everything is education. I'll say everything is political. You'll say everything is language. And that's beautiful. I love it. And it really is just, we're all just trying to figure out how it works. And yes, the patterns... patterns, and maybe that's why autism has such maybe an adaptive. Oh, here we go. Let's go down this path. Autistic kids are a major target for this transing of kids at the moment, and maybe that's because we are the people. I'm fucking going into crazy town now. But there is some evidence that autism is an evolutionary adaptation to the world and that we are slightly more evolved. I'm talking about the sort of the burgeries, right? Not the rolling Asperger's and autism into the same fucking thing is a criminal. I shouldn't have done it because now I feel like I have to qualify. People with Asperger's, right? Fucking Sheldon Coopers of the world, right? we're inoculated against certain types of bullshit, especially things like social pressure, right? And also pattern memory. So one thing that, like I was musically gifted as a kid because I just have the ability to just see patterns and make patterns, right? I can play, lots of gifts. Higher spectrum autism, exactly. But I didn't like them rolling that into, I think that, but they shouldn't have done that. I think they're just, it's not so much that they're not the same spectrum. It's the fact that they're just the life and the disability and the impact. I think that what it does is it erases those who have the more severe disability. And I've seen this in autistic circles, which is a lot of people like putting people like myself up as spokespeople. This is why I've never made myself a spokesperson, because I present neurotypically, right, for the most part. If you know the signs, you can tell. But I'm saying that I'm an attractive spokesperson for autism because I don't make people uncomfortable, and I don't think that does any of my peers any justice. And I think that we need to make sure that is very and not a lot of people are like me and as self-aware as me to realize that they're actually being a bit of a cunt by sitting there talking about someone who can't wipe their own bum, right? So anyway, that's just me. I that's just my thoughts on this stuff, which is I can only speak to my experience and experience as a mother of a kid with autism, and my husband, and I can only speak. We're all functioning, right, for the most part. I'm like sort of more Hannah Gadsby than Rain Man, right? And I just think, but anyway, my point is that people on the sort of high, Asperger's spectrum do have some somewhat protective traits against a lot of this sort of mind virus stuff. Isn't that an interesting hypothesis? That we've adapted to, that we've gotten an evolution. We should. I think I don't know whether this would be a Brett Weinstein question or a Heather question, but whether this would be an adaptation to the bullshit, the political climate, because we adapt to our environment. So whether or not people with sort of high functioning autism or Asperger's have been are adapting to the world, the bullshit of the world through the internet, right? And creating a sort of new super species. Yeah, vegan cats. Yeah, exactly. Fucking don't. Well, we've covered all of the bannable offences today. We may as well go down the Desmond is amazing path, shall we? My God. Fuck me. It's just so wrong. Yeah, my son plays games, right? And he's obviously autistic. And it's like, what are you, autistic, man? He's like, yeah, what of it? And it's just a joke, right? I love that. I like the fact that it's gone mainstream and that autistic, I think it's not an insult. It's a celebration. I think it's something that, that's why I think it's an injustice to those that suffer from severe disability getting erased, because the reality of autism is different. And some fucking, like Hannah Gadsby's special was great and funny, and I like her and her story, but that's not the only one. It's not. There is underneath this is a lot of suffering, a lot of difficult parenting. Like I'm going through some of this stuff at the moment. I can't talk about it because it's private, but trying to raise a kid, it's extremely hard for those around you as well to live with, right? So but yeah, so anyway, I do sit here and you're in the sandbox of Taya's brain at the moment, where I sit there and I wonder if this is an adaptive thing. I wonder, maybe it is. Anyway, what was that? What else? So Flickr asked me a question, and this is really a really big one, and I've been meaning to get to it, right? She said, there are layers of, this is a big fucking question, so I'm not going to answer it very well, but I'm only going to answer it through my experience and what I think, right? Which is, there are layers of corruption all the way through conveyor belt of the justice system from that have the most impact on the poor and vulnerable, and I think these are being ignored in the name of countering racial disparities with emphasizing racism as an exclusive problem. Discuss. I believe it's not necessarily corruption as such. I think that without looking at class and poverty, right? I grew up in extreme, I grew up alongside a lot of, let's use the Aboriginal example, right? Because that's something that I know a lot about. I grew up alongside these kids in the same housing estates, same stuff, right? I got out because of the colour of my skin, right? That could be called white privilege. It's a thing, right? Because people helped me and people wanted to help me. But I also accepted the help. And I've seen this also through my, and for those that are watching from overseas, probably don't understand the atrocities that, there's just the atrocious way that we've treated Aboriginal people over since occupation, right? I'm going to call it occupation because it's true. So in the early, oh God, I have to go back to the fucking 20th century for this, but I'm going to try and summarize it quickly. But in the sort of, we thought we were doing the right thing. This is the thing. It's unintended consequences that keeps coming up, which is people, I don't believe that it's corruption. I think that, and I know that corruption is a sort of, I think it's just a loaded word. I truly believe that people are good. I truly believe that they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing the right thing. Like even with these riots and with the protests and with wokeism, what that proves is that most people are good people, right? Now, the stolen generation, for those that don't know, was a policy in the 20th century that Aboriginal children, particularly half white, half caste, half black, half Aboriginal children, would be removed by the state from their homes, from their families, and put into foster homes, group homes, and that sort of thing, right? Now, this was by the Department for Community, all of those, the child protection were under welfare, right? Now, this obviously was something that was awful. I've got to be very careful because first of all, I don't want to misspeak, but also I don't want to fucking cry, right? Because I've heard so many stories about this. I've lived in the shadow of this policy as a child protection worker. It is something, I think it's, again, I don't want to equate it, but it's like when you are a child protection worker in the shadow of the stolen generation, I'm trying to liken it. It would be like owning a plantation in the US and having a black housekeeper. They're not the same thing. I don't know how to. Anyway, I'm just trying to explain that the ominous. It's not just it's not your actions, right? Your actions represent a lot of other fucking shit that you didn't do, but you're in that shadow. So when you are when you're working as a welfare person, this comes back to the justice system. I'm only speaking about the welfare but they're similar, right? The people on the ground, still social workers, still, like we knew the police, had a good relationship with the police. So and juvenile justice and that sort of stuff. That's the stuff that I know about. I only like to talk about things I know. When you're working, it's an immense responsibility. And it's something that you feel it every day. But when you have to remove an Aboriginal child for their safety, what do you do? Right? You're then part of the problem. This is why I had to quit. I'd only lasted 6 months as a welfare, as a graduate. I was working in child protection as one of my first jobs. But when it's as symbolic as it is practical, right? So in that moment, right, No, but in that moment, like I've driven this will, it haunts me forever. Apprehending a young child, right, from their mother, and that child had no future. I often wonder if like there's just so many stories of where we've had to apprehend, and that is a last resort. Just so you know, like for welfare. For a child to be removed from their home, and not so much now. Now they're just, for some reason, allowed to just fucking call you a cunt and walk out and they do nothing. I don't know how that fucking happened. Let's not go there. But traditionally, in terms of policy, when it comes to removal of young children from and put into foster care or whatever, it's a last resort thing. We give the family all of the chances, all of the resources, all of the parenting classes, and so many chances, right, before they're removed. Now, also remembering that the caseload is extremely high, so you've often got to make snap decisions, because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children that just go unattended just because of resources and caseload, right? And I'm just giving you my experience because it helps you to, it's like it answers Flicker's question, sort of. But I only talk about my experience. So you've got a massive caseload. You're in the shadow of the stolen generation, where the government have done this horrific thing that we've since apologised for, right? And as a I was 23 years old, right? Having to apprehend kids and move them into foster care, that sort of stuff. But it is actually a last resort thing. So my understanding, I don't know whether it's the same, but at the time it was lots and lots and lots of chances. If they're removed, the first thing that they do is place them with family. What's that noise? That's not a vibrator going off. That's the neighbour's something or other. Anyway, just so you know. And I got into this because I remembered how I grew up, and I wanted to help those kids because I grew up and I got out with help, and so I wanted to be the person that helped, right? But it's not that simple. You can't. The thing is, you can't actually help. That's the problem. You can't, and that goes back to all the way through the conveyor belt. You can't help them in any meaningful way until nobody who doesn't want help can be helped. And that makes people really uncomfortable. Okay, we're seeing that with all the wokes as well. I know I've gotten very fucking dark, hasn't it? But I'm just trying to highlight through my experience, right? Which is that the opportunity to change is there. The opportunity to help and receive help is there for the most part. Obviously, it's not there. But when you're dealing with this is intergenerational trauma, right? Based from something like the stolen generation, where receiving help from someone like me putting out my hand, it's not just Taya putting her hand out to help. Taya represents everything that we've ever done, right? You don't trust it, and you don't respect it, and you want to overthrow it, and you want to tear it down. And I think I can kind of understand that, and that's why I think a lot of people on the ground, and I've got to be very careful with my words here. Just if I misspeak, just, I mean this in the nicest way, just as someone who has been in this position of trying to help, right? Is that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You try to help, you are being paternalistic or white, or you're the arm of the government. If you don't help, you're sick. Is it eight sick? Fucking ATSIC. Fucking all of that stuff, right? So we've tried so many different things, right? Lots of different councils, self-run stuff, and it ends up being corrupted, and the money always never, ever, ever seems to get to the ground, to the people who need it, to the food, the kids who are hungry, and it just never seems to get there. And when you do try, it's rejected because they see, and I've seen this on the ground, You're a white person. You're not, when you are, okay, I understand. See, this is where I understand the whiteness thing, okay? As much as I hate this fucking middle class, this is, okay, the middle class and up have co-opted these issues, right? Doesn't mean there's no issue. I, with my white face, represent people who have hurt their people, okay? Right? And so it's not just money, right? You know those, and this is something that I've seen, right? A lot of the attitude is that even you're not an individual in that mind. You're just somebody that can be. Anyway, it's just more what we represent. But it makes it very difficult to help because this is why critical theory is so toxic on the ground, because now it creates this thing where all of these institutions need to be self-run or self-organized, but they're also open to corruption and not held to account for that by those. There's always grifters in everything. Doesn't matter what your race is. I know I've wandered off, but I'm just trying to unpick this. And yes, things would be self-run. There's also not a lot of people that are willing to do it. It's so complicated. I think I've just talked off. It's such a huge problem. It's probably its own stream in its own right. It's one of those things. But critical theory doesn't help. Okay, I did this big Twitter thread the other day, which was basically, critical theory doesn't get food to a hungry kid. What it does is it makes that hungry kid reject the food. Okay, because that food is they're trying to give you the food, right? I'm not tired. I've jumped on a landmine, and it requires. This is one of those areas where I talk a lot. It's so complex. It's so easy to misspeak, and I care enough about it. I think it's actually its own thing. I'd actually like to just talk about it separately because it's so dear to my heart, and I just have seen the shit I've seen over the years. But at the same time, why critical theory doesn't help is that for the people that are willing to be on the ground and put food in kids' mouths and nappies on their bums and health care when they need it, like I was next to, I've been next to a woman in hospital. Well, I had a high-risk pregnancy, so I was hospitalised for quite a long time. There was a woman next to me in the ward next to me. And the white doctor, said to her, if you drink one more beer, you and your baby will die. Right? The doctor walked out and I heard the sound of a can. And it's just like, fuck. Because when you undermine the authority of people who are trying to help you, it's just poison. It's poison on the ground. It's poison, absolutely poison. And if someone had just said, look, these people can help you, they're worth listening to, right? All critical theory and this white hate stuff does is make it so that the people on the ground reject the people that are trying. They might not be doing it perfectly. Anyway, I'm getting emotional over this because it actually is really... So, to answer your question, Flicker, right? I think about that woman. I wonder if she's like... I think about her baby because my nephew was also born to a drug-addicted mother and like just... Anyway. So the answer to that is that poverty doesn't... When you're all poor, right? When you're all poor, when you're all in the same situation, creating further division. I acknowledge, I got out of this stuff because I was white. I've benefited from it. I then turned my life I wanted to turn my life in a direction where I could actually make a difference and help. And I realized that I couldn't, right? So, and I said, actually, mate, I went through a thing where I was like, I either need to lose who I am, right? And lose my empathy and lose this thing here that makes me like hurt from thinking about. I'd have to lose that or quit. And I chose to quit. So to go back to your question or comment about corruption through the conveyor belt and the justice system, is that in order to be in that system, you need to numb. Okay? I think that's the thing, is it's numbing. And it's the fact that these are, and critical theory and being yelled at being a policeman and being a especially an Aboriginal police person, right? Caught between worlds, right? Especially, I just feel for those the Black American police officers at the moment. That critical theory is fucking, it's corrosive. When you're on the ground in poverty, your skin color might give you a way out, but it doesn't change your situation when you're there together, right? And that's the thing. And I think that and it's just, yeah, it's so hard. Anyway, I know this got too fucking intense. I was meant to be like a little bit crazy, but I'm just saying, like, critical theory is just, it's divisive and toxic, and do you know what it does? It forms a lot of not-for-profits with a lot of people who sit around fucking, twiddling their thumbs and thinking about the right words to say, rather than actually putting food in kids' mouths, no matter what color the fucking food comes from. Okay? If you want to actually do something, get out of a university and get out of your fucking Twitter bubble and go to a food bank, and you'll start to see how fucking equalizing that can be, right? So anyway, that got dark. It got deep. So, but to answer your question, it's not corruption, it's numbing. And the problem is that how do we keep people from numbing while facing the very real? The reality of it is that only in order to care, you need to care. But in order to survive in it, you need to numb. And that's the problem, right? It's just really, and that's the problem. And that's why when you add in something and pour kerosene on division, like critical theory, right, or something like that, right, most people go, fuck it. Right, I know people, right, other former welfare workers, where they're just like, fucking hell, these people get more money than I do. Why the fuck am I bothering? They just call me a cunt all day. Because I'm just the government to them. I'm not Taya trying to help these people. I'm not, I'm representative, right? That's the problem. And all of these fucking, meanwhile, the money never trickles down, right? It's always at the top. It always goes to the fucking whatever unicorn fucking not-for-profit social media. You know what we could do? Stop funding those stupid fucking things. Stop funding awareness groups. If you want an awareness group, that needs to be privately funded. If you're not doing material, actual, on-the-ground work, then you don't get government money. That should be that would be something, right? Oxfam should get the money. Right? World Vision. I mean, again, the churches do the hard work because no one else will, right? Again, can't knock the churches because they do, my husband works in aged care. That's a Catholic church. They do good work, right? Yeah, and I've got a whole number of stories I could go into on this, right? But this is probably why I'm immune to a lot of this bullshit, because I've lived on the ground and I know that when someone's hungry, they don't give a fuck what your skin color is. All right? And to turn around and make the gesture of handing someone soup a power relationship and a power dynamic rather than just a human trying to help another human, right? That's fucked. Like you're not a good person if you push this shit, because you are that final, you may be, those thoughts may be the one thing that makes a young teenager not get clean, not receive medical care, because let's be, there's only a finite amount of Aboriginal doctors and stuff, and that we should fix that, right? but they can't help everybody. So anyway, that got fucking deep. I've gone on for ages. 2.5 hours. Fuck me. How did that? Anyway, I hope that answered your question. And Peter asked, do protests cure coronavirus? Well, it would seem they do. Oh, God, I'm going to have to chop this one up, I think. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm going to go. I think, do you know what? I think it's time that I started saying that I need funding to do more stuff. I think I've gotten good. I'd like it. So help me out if you can. Or share my shit. Tell them I'm smart and tell them to soldier on through 2.5. This is I don't normally do streams this long. This is crazy. But it just kind of evolved from there. And it's just insane. It's so insane. Don't be fat, fed, and happy, all right? And stupid. They want you fat, fed, and stupid, right? Don't be stupid. And wokeism is stupidity. Anyway, I'm going to go. I've got 12 people watching at once, I think. Probably more than that, actually, because this doesn't reliably do that. So, wow, that's crazy. Awesome. One day I'll laugh and go, 12. But I'm going to go because I am tired. I would love to have some guests on. Alaric, let's talk. I'd really like to expand on what you were saying today because you're an interesting guy, and introduce me to anyone as well. If you want to support me, there's links and stuff. I don't like that fucking grifty shit, but the reality is that if you want me to get a PC and you want me to do sort of professional shit, then, it costs money. So, all right. Also, if you like video games, follow this, right? A couple of YouTube streamers who build a cult on Pandora, and they fucking... And also what's funny is all their cult members have green hair. So I can't help but wonder if Borderlands are fucking making a subtle point. But yeah. What? Are you talking about Jordan Peterson or your friend, a different person? Because there's no way in hell Jordan would talk to me. That's crazy. Anyway, yes, I really want to start just getting some alternative thoughts out there. Oh, was that your other friend, Jordan, from earlier? Sorry. There's too many fucking things going on at once. I'm going to go. Thank you for your precious life seconds in this instance. If you've been watching for 2.5 hours, fuck me. Thank you. I love you. Please stay safe. God, if I could talk to Jordan Peterson and get that fucking lift, that would be awesome. I'm sitting here with my 2 viewers. Oh, no. I appreciate everyone that I get, but it's that's crazy. Yeah, I'd rather he just get well right now. But yeah, it's on PS4. Yeah, it's on PS4. I'd rather. Can I be honest? Okay, with my podcast stuff, I've got people that I want to be on, but I think the timing needs to be right because I'm not stupid about this polarization, and the problem with having Graham on, who has said yes, and people like or Jordan or anyone, right, is that I will get fucking punch kicked, what's it called, sucker punched, Worms Armageddon style, right into the alt-right label, and that would then limit my ability to have neutral conversations. So what I'd like to do is eventually is to just kind of fucking, it is so hard, right? Oh, Gad Sad's fantastic. He fucking tells it like it is, man. I like him a lot. Yeah, he's a good guy. So, anyway, I'm going to go. I have to go. I'm running out of steam and I'm just talking shit. If you want to introduce me to people that can help grow my audience, by all means, that's like amazing thing you can do. That costs nothing, right? I'm trying to be discovered. Yeah. Like I won't spew the second I think people are watching. Anyway, thank you. I'll read these chats back because I think I'm fading. But I love you. Thank you so much for everything and watching and everything. It's so cool. I love you. Bye. Bye. That awkward. Like celebrities when the coronavirus first hit and it was like everyone was like